Some players already calling server merges the last chance for Age of Empire Mobile. And honestly, after reading the community discussions and see how different servers evolve over the time, I understand where that feeling is coming from. Because when you walk into a server that feels quieter than expected or less competitive that you imagine, it naturally creates that impression that something is wrong, even when that is not necessary the full picture. Now I want to say this very clearly from the beginning, because this is where my perspective comes from and why I think this topic matter so much. I actively play the game. I follow multiple servers and I read Discord conversation daily, which means I've seen both extremes. I have seen servers that feels incredibly alive, full of wars, coordination and rivalry. And I've seen also servers where players start saying this is over much earlier than expected, even though the system itself is still developing behind the scene. And this is exactly where the misunderstanding begins. Because when players say a server is dead, they usually don't mean that nobody's playing. What they actually mean is that the type of gameplay they're expected, constraints fight, unpredictable wars, competitive tensions, is no longer happening in the way they imagine it would. And that emotional gap between expectation and reality is what creates frustration. If you really look how the servers evolve in Age of Empire Mobile, you start to notice that this feeling almost always begin at the very specific point, and that point is early dominance, because the moment one alliance or one coordinated group gains strong control early in the server life cycle, they don't just win fights. In that moment, they begin shaping the entire environment for every other player on that server. What happened after that is actually very predictable. If you see it few times, because once a dominant group establishes control, other players start adjusting their behavior around that reality. Some of them join the strongest side, some stop pushing competitively, some begin saving for migration, and some slowly disengage from active conflict. And over time, this creates the impression that the server itself it become inactive. Now this is where I want you to really pay attention, because this next part is a key to understanding everything that happened right now. And it's something a lot of players overlook. This situation is not necessarily a problem with the game, but rather a natural outcome of progression-based system where players grow at different speed and organize themselves differently. In a game like Age of Empire Mobile, where progression, coordination and long-term planning all play a role, it's completely normal that some servers will become more competitive early, where others stabilize or slow down temporarily. And if you don't recognize the pattern, it's very easy to misinterpret what you're seeing as something negative when it's actually part of watch cycle. And this is exactly why the server merge system exists, and why the recent announcement is such a big moment for the game, because this is not just a random feature being added. This is a system designed specifically to reshape server ecosystems and bring players into more active and competitive environments. When you look at the official announcement, you can clearly see that intentions behind it, because they are prioritizing a large number of servers, including early realms, multiple kingdoms, and a wide range of empires, and they're rolling this out in phases, with pilot servers first and then official servers after, which show that the goal is not just to merge servers quickly, but to do it in a way that actually improves the player experience. And this is where things start to get really interesting, because once you understand how this system works, you realize that server mergers are not just about combining players' bases. They're about creating entirely new competitive environments where stronger alliance, active players, and different playstyles are brought together into one shaped space. What makes it even more important is the timeline we're being given, because with stages like the rule announcement and QA and the full breakdown before the actual merge dates, players have time to prepare, time to understand the system, and time to positioning themselves in a way that benefit them long term. Now here is where I want to shift your perspective a little bit, because a lot of players are currently looking at server merges as a kind of fix, as if the system is going to automatically solve every issue they're expecting, but that's not really how it works. Server merges don't create balances by themselves. They create opportunities, and what happens after that depends entirely on how players adapt to the new environment. Because when multiple active groups come together, you don't just get one dominant force, you get new competition, new rivals, and new dynamics that didn't exist before. And this is where one of the most important factors come into play, which is population balance. Because if you look at the different servers right now, there are huge difference in activity levels, with some regions showing significantly higher participation and event scores compared to the others. And that gap is one of the main reasons why mergers are being implemented at the first place. What this means in practice is that instead of having isolated servers with very different activity levels, the system can bring them close together, potentially combine multiple servers into a single environment where overall activity is higher and competition is more consistent. Now, I know some players are concerned about what they call bad merges, and that's a valid concern to have, because whenever you bring different groups together, there's always uncertainty about how things will pay out, especially when your stronger alliance or highly active players are involved. But here's the key difference that a lot of players are not considering. After the merge, the environment is much larger, much more active, and much more unpredictable, which means that even strong players are no longer operating in the same controlled environment they have before. And that alone creates new opportunities for competition. And this is where your mindset as a player becomes extremely important. Because if you look at your current servers and think this is over, you're going to approach the game very different than if you look at it and think this is just transition phase before something bigger. Because the reality is that many servers that feels quiet right now are not at the end of their life cycle. They're in between phases, waiting for the next shift. And that shift is exactly what systems like server merges are designed to create. So instead of asking whether the game is losing its kingdoms, I think its better question is whether players fully understand how those kingdoms evolve over time. Because once you start looking in the game in terms of phases rather than fixed states, everything begins to make sense. At the end of the day, Age of Empire Mobile is not a static experience, it's a dynamic one. And that means there will always be a moment where things feel slower or less competitive, followed by moments where everything becomes intense again, especially when systems like migration and server mergers come into play. And if you're one of those quieter faces right now, that doesn't mean your journey is over. It might actually mean that you are right before one of the most important transitions in the game, where the new opportunities, new competitors, and new experience is about to open up. Because when those mergers happen and when this new environment are formed, this is where the game really starts to feel alive again. And the players who understand what is coming are the ones who will benefit the most from it. So this is my 2 cents over the server merges, what I personally think. If you go that far in this video, make sure you hit one like, it's going to help my channel by a lot. And let me know your comment in the comments below. It's very important we as a community share more opinions and find the truth somewhere there. So I wish you great day. Here I'm going to put one video, you can go and check it out if you're interested in. And yeah, see you in the next video.